Divorce lawyers of Reddit, what is the most insane, evil, funny, dumb way a spouse has tried to screw the other? Had a client whose wife wanted him out of the house. I told him not to leave, just move to a different bedroom for the time being because once he was out the chances of him ever getting back in were slim. He texted his wife and told her he was staying in the house. She called back and left a VM that she wanted him out and if he wasn't out soon, she would start taking out her unhappiness on the children, and would remind the children that mommy was being mean to them because daddy wouldn't leave. 101 on how to lose custody. You bet I played it for the mediator and judge. What was the result? I work for a divorce attorney now, but the craziest thing came to my attention when I worked for the prosecuting attorney. This couple was breaking up and Mr. left the house. Mrs. went to work the next morning as usual. When she returned home in the evening she found Mr. had been to the house and removed his clothing and belongings as she expected. What she didn't expect was that he had also gorilla glued her belongings together. He glued the TV remote to the table, the phone to its cradle, the couch pillows to the couch and even glued the vacuum cleaner to the carpet. She called the police and reported this as property damage. The police went with her through the house documenting dozens of items glued to various things, but for days she was discovering random things and she would call to amend or update her report. My GD oven mitts were glued to the wall. Or he glued the effing sheets together in the linen closet. I've seen people do and say really awful things to each other, but that was diabolical. Wow. That's creative. Smart of her to call the police though. Documenting this upfront helps. I can't stop laughing at the absurdity of it all. Just imagining she kept finding random things glued together for weeks afterwards. It's hilariously evil. Weeks? It might be years. When was the last time you needed to move a picture frame? I mean, under the circumstances, I'd probably check picture frames pretty early on. 2 years later, need to change that light bulb, duck 3 years later, refrigerator dies, goes to unplug it, fuck. Ooh, light bulbs are ducking evil genius. They'll break well before you could get them unstuck and then you have a base screwed in with no leverage on it. Hell, don't even glue anything used a lot, glue every light socket, put fresh batteries, yes an expense but worth it cause it won't be noticed quickly, in all the remotes and glue them in, glue pictures to the wall, glue rarely used plugs, like fridge and stuff, to outlets, glue the fancy china to the china hutch. Stuff like that might not be discovered for months or years. On the plus side though, you'll have almost zero breakages in the event of an earthquake. This one hits close to home because it happened between my parents. We had a family friend who was a lawyer and my parents agreed that he would be the lawyer for both of them as a mediator. So, as the assets were being divided my dad got absolutely slammed. She was going to get the house, cars, half his retirement, and an insane amount of alimony. To the tune of like $2,500 a month for the rest of her life. My dad has a good job as a municipal employee, but that was probably 70%-ish of his paycheck. Turns out that my mom and the family friend actually conspired to rip my dad off and make it seem like that's what a divorce settlement looks like. And she was going to kick back more money under the table after the dust had settled. Dad just didn't know how these things worked. So, after some convincing he finally went out and got his own lawyer. He got a very fair divorce settlement after that. Mom still to this day can't understand why we don't talk to her much. That other attorney could be disbarred for that. Should be. Slippin' Jimmy back at it. Worked at an airport. Big burly guy brings an ugly-ass dog in a crate to the counter, he is clearly misty-eyed. Turns out wife got the dog in the divorce and he has to send it to her and she told him as soon as she gets it she is putting it down. He asks if he can have some time with the dog before the flight so they go out in the grass and they both roll around in the grass, Dog's tail just wagging away, not knowing anything about his future. The guy puts him back in the crate, drops him off the counter, says thanks, and then just walked out, head down and just looking crushed. That was 30 years ago and I still remember it like it was yesterday. Who the duck does that? I don't know. How can you go from loving somebody to that much hatred? So much so to murder an innocent dog. Oof. I've seen a guy get a surprise reunion with his dog that his ex-girlfriend took. She said that she had to give it away because her new place wouldn't allow pets. So the dog was basically long lost or even dead in his mind. I didn't know the backstory at the time, just that he hadn't seen it in a long time. I'm pretty sure I would have teared up if I did. But I was just standing there oblivious, like damn, dude must have really loved the dog. He was ugly, crying, and the dog's tail was like a helicopter blade while it licked all his tears. Haha, evidently, it happens quite a bit, an ex lying about the pet to hurt the other. Super messed up either way. This reminds me of something that happened to one of the cats that got adopted from the shelter I volunteer at. A woman came in looking for a specific cat that she saw on the website, saying she thinks it might be her old cat that her ex took when they broke up. Since she and her ex hadn't been in contact, she had no idea why the cat would end up in a shelter, but she was positive it was her cat because of similar unique markings and fur pattern. Sure enough, I take her to the cat's cage, and she bursts into tears and they both obviously recognize each other. I took the cat out and put them in a visit room together, and damn, it was like they had never even been separated. The cat immediately rubbed against her and curled up in her lap. The woman showed me pics of the cat as a kitten and I'm pretty sure it was the same cat. It turns out the ex had surrendered the cat because he was moving. The woman was so happy to be reunited and she wouldn't have even found the cat if she hadn't been browsing the website by chance. One of the happiest adoptions I helped see through. Smile. Divorce lawyer here. Spouse had been out of the house for weeks. She waited until he was on a business trip, came into the house, turned on all of the faucets, plugged the drains, turned off the furnace, and left. It was minus 10 degrees. He came back 5 days later. The house was ruined. The water froze and cracked the foundation. She's a wet bandit. She should find the Gorilla Glue guy from Upthread. They're the sticky bandits now. I'm going to school to be a vet assistant. My teacher is a veterinarian. She told us on Monday she's had clients bring their animals in to be euthanized so their spouse couldn't have them. SMDH. Is it even ducking legal? Yes, it is. It isn't ethical though. Most vets take their oath seriously. Can vets refuse? Absolutely, they have an ethical responsibility to do no harm to animals. My dad is a vet. A client wanted 6 kittens euthanized. We couldn't accept him as a client and then not euthanize them, so we had to get his permission to set them up for adoption. He agreed, as long as he didn't have to do much paperwork. Jesus stuck. People argued with me up and down that I could accept him and then not put them down. Or they said, why don't you just refuse him as a client? Like if the guy's wanting them out down, if Hess refused then hell just put them in a bag on the fucking highway. People acted like they knew 10 times more than my dad, who's the best vet in our state. Granted, that state is Mississippi, and Hess been in practice for over 20 years. People didn't understand the concept that if we didn't refuse him, we'd have to do what he wanted. My uncle's ex tried to work it in that she would get half of whatever my grandmother would leave him when she passes. Joke's on her, my grandmother is passing over her kids, not maliciously. My uncle is very well off and so is my mom, and leaving everything to my brother and me. Oh, also tried to get sole custody of both of their children, who are in their 20s. What would custody mean there? Like, you have to visit at least 5 times a year and be here for Christmas? Maybe the ability to claim them as a dependent on their taxes. Friend was going through divorce from insane husband. He had been texting her pics of the gun he bought and threatening her. Police were called. Nothing they could do because it was only a picture. He was staying with a secret girlfriend at this point. She allowed him to go get his stuff from the house. She was scared to go back in the house alone. I went with her. First red flag was he had changed the locks. So we waited for locksmith to open the house and change the locks again. Well, when the door opens, we noticed all of the furniture was gone. So we carefully went upstairs in search of her cats. The entire second floor was empty. No cats. No furniture. Even her clothes were gone. Come to find out, he hired a moving company to pack and take everything, even the food in the fridge. Finally found the cats. He had taken them to another vet in town and put them up for boarding under his sister's name, thinking she would not be able to find them. He was finally forced to disclose what happened to her possessions. He had them taken to a storage unit far away from the home. I can't believe him saying this, but relative to the amount of animal abuse in the rest of this thread, I'm glad he didn't try to kill the cats. I 100% expected the cats to be euthanized.